Yeah.
Speaking of issues, Ray, you and I read the comments from our podcast. We read them assiduously, even if we don't respond. Most of the comments, I think, are pretty positive, but there is a cohort of folks who look at what we say and keep saying we are just paid propagandists of the U.S. government, even though I would argue we don't tend to take positions that much as opposed to listen to our guests. But anyway, Colonel Powell, how do you respond to the argument that you are a paid U.S. government propagandist?
Well, Jim, as you know, I have other pursuits. One of them, of course, was with Sea Light, which is the group that I lead from Stanford that focuses a lot on Chinese maritime aggressions, especially in the South China Sea. So I get that probably even more because of my Sea Light hat than because of our podcast here. So maybe some of that may be sort of sloshing over onto you, I'm afraid. Um, but I mean, yes, I get a lot of it. In fact, I was just down in my wife's hometown of Davao City. I was foolish enough to post about this on X, my Twitter page or my X page, and immediately there, or very soon afterward, there was a picture of sort of some unknown Caucasian person in a National Bureau of Investigation hat talking to a Philippine policeman in Davao City, and the rumor began to spread around these, sort of circles in social media that I was that person, and what was I doing mucking around in Davao City with the police, and I must be up to some sort of plot. Of course, the idea that I'm an intelligence officer, that I've got a lot of money coming from the CIA or from other government sources. So I get this quite a bit, and it's very hard to sort of push back because you can't prove a negative, right? You can't say, no, I'm not, right? I mean, it's not like I can just sort of roll out all my bank accounts and see there's no big checks except for my pension coming into these bank accounts. So mostly, honestly, I often just sort of have fun with it. It's some of the things that come up are kind of amusing. I was once accused of having a $500 million propaganda budget from the U.S. Government. My wife asks me about this all the time when I'm going to sort of start forking over some of this $500 million. And of course, it was actually funny because just a couple of weeks ago, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, showed up in Manila with a $500 million foreign military financing package for the Philippines. And so my wife's like, oh, great. We should go over to Manila to make sure you can get your money. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's been my approach. I get questions from other people who kind of face some of the same things. What do you do about it? And again, I think you and I, Jim, have been around even in the United States. Depends on which news programs you watch as to which conspiracy theories you sort of roll across. And so we know that this is not something that's unique to this area, to this region. It's innate to human nature and the current state of our media. There are just going to be conspiracy theories, and they're really easy to get out there now. And if you worry about them, I think you just can't worry about them. It's just too much.
Yeah, it's the old Oscar Wilde thing. It's better to be talked about than not talked about. So
Yeah.
We'll take that as a positive. But what I hope everyone does is just listen to what's being presented and consider the argument as opposed to who's presenting it. The fact is we're just a couple of guys with our producer Ian doing this because we think it's important. No compensation. It's just important to us. But beyond that, it's just important to have these discussions because they affect our lives and will affect the lives of our children and grandchildren.